Welcome back, guys. So I've also forgot to mention one thing more is that the style guide that I'm following for writing my Angular code is John Papa's Angular 1 style guide. So do take a look at this. The link is over here. I'll also link it in the description box below. And yeah, let's get started with our finally making our controller page of our Angular app. All right, so it's a post page, but then we'll also have a home page. So first, let's create the home page for our Angular app. Let's name it main. Now in the main folder, I'll have the main page. The main folder, I'll have main.html, no, um, main dot main.controller.js. Don't keep on asking me this. Okay. And a spec file, which is basically our test file. So main.controller.spec.js. Okay. So main.html will host the HTML file, which will basically be how our home page looks. And okay, fine. Let's start writing it. So it will basically be a div with body top section because I'm using this uh, class because I'm using my own CSS for this. Oops. Again, I should. Okay, let's start this again. All right, so yeah, this is the div that I have. And as you would see before that you would always have to declare with the HTML file, you would always have to declare an ng controller. Well, in our case, we don't. We don't have to do that because Gulp does that for us. Gulp does everything for us. It links up all the HTML, JS, and spec files together. It, it's an awesome thing. It just links up everything and just shows it in the browser. All right, so yeah, so let's just write div content class and then uh, uh, it's just putting my logo, but I won't be putting my logo right now. I'm just like logo as in the macchiato logo. I don't need this right now, so I'm just gonna be leaving it over here. Let's just write hello world just to see if that it's rendering properly. Okay. So yeah, let's take a look. So I'm running gulp serve. Okay, it didn't render anything because we haven't declared the route yet. So let's declare the route because the home page is our route. Now we do have declared the route, but then we need a template URL for our route because what template would it render, right? So our template URL is app. The app is our relative path, controllers, main, and main.html. And our controller file is main controller, and our we'll use the controller as because it gets kinda messy when you use the controller name as during declaration. So I'm just gonna give it a name, main. Main is the name of our controller. All right, so let's see in the controller page we write a self-invoking function because we're following John Papa style guide. Use strict because we want it to be strict. We want our ESLint errors to show up whenever we do make an error. So in the John Papa style guide, he writes it in this format, and that's the format I'm gonna be using because I like his style guide. It's up to you what format you want to follow, but I happen to like his way of justifying why to write a code in a certain way. So main controller, and we'll have an ng inject over here slash star star at ng inject because this will help Gulp kind of figure out what to inject in the index.html. And function, well, you won't have to always write ng inject from hereafter, from now onwards, what we're going to do is we're going to be copying this whole format of how the controller file is written, and we're going to be pasting it everywhere, so that, and we'll just keep on changing the name as we go. All right, so this is the controller, and we don't have any functionality, right? We're just rendering a hello world. So let's see. As you can see, it's already here. Hello world is already rendered. Right. Now we have our first controller. Now let's make, like, for now we want all the posts to be in our home page. And I don't like the whole clutteredness of how, okay, got a bit hung up over there. Sorry. So as I was saying, I don't like the whole clutteredness of having every single thing in one page, in a file. So for example, I could just write the whole, the whole post page of how the post so many posts are being rendered. I could just write it over here in this one div, but this would make the code really big. It will make the code like from here to like the whole page, and I don't want that. So I want the whole post rendering thing to be a whole component or a directive. So today we're going to be writing a first directive. All right, so posts directive. Here I want all the posts to be rendered. So this is the post directive, and it will have an HTML post.html. It will have a JS post.directive.js, and then it will have a spec file post.directive.spec.js. All right, so in the posts.html, I will do the main post code, like not the main post code, like just how a single thumbnail of a post looks like. Because before you saw that the whole, like, it was like a card, like, right? It was like a bootstrap card. So let's Google bootstrap cards. So our post will be basically a bootstrap card, right? It will basically be this. This was what you've been seeing there, this whole card. So what I want is I want a loop to go about that will keep on rendering this card each time a post is created. So it will keep on rendering all my posts with this card. So I'll just be copying over this whole template of this card. But first I need a main container. So div.container.main. Okay, this is the JS file. Sorry about that. Div.container.main. So we have the main container. We have div.row, which is our bootstrap row. And in that bootstrap row, I'll have my card. But I have like what you call a custom made class which will give my kind of design. Not like, I don't want the bootstrap kind of design. It's kind of too simple for me. So I wanted a bit my kind of design. And also I wanted some what you would say, like, width setup. Like, I don't like this inline CSS popping in. So I have a what you call it, yeah, I have my own styling with the fonts and everything. And yeah, so this is the picture of the post. Now I want some placeholder image over here, because since my post um doesn't have any sort of oops, it doesn't have any, what you call, picture or a featured image. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be taking a placeholder image of 350 and 150, oh sorry, 350 and 150 dimensions placehold. So I'm going to be using 350 150 dimensions of placehold, and yeah, this is the default one. I'm going to be using this oops. And yeah, so I've placed the placeholder image. Now this won't be showing up in my controller yet, because this is yet to be a directive. Now in order for it to be a directive, I need to first inject this directive and write this directives controller file. So what I'm doing is, again, writing this. Okay, fine, this is getting repetitive, so I'm just going to copy over. It's sort of similar to this, so I'm just going to copy this over. And this will be not a directive, this will be a controller, and it will be post controller. Now the whatever, sorry, directive. So whatever you write over here is the name of your directive. Like for example, you wrote post, so your directive will be posts slash posts. Your Angular directive will be like this. Okay, if you named it post, then it will be just post. Okay, so this is what decides the name of your directive, and that will be rendered in your HTML. And the name of this is posts. Yeah, posts directive. All right, so posts directive. Okay, so now we have the directive that will be returning. So var directive equals, let's restrict it to E. I like my directives in this format, posts, as opposed to something like div posts, sorry, div. I don't like this format. If you want this format, then you can restrict this to A. But I like the first format, so I'm gonna restrict this to E, right? And then what comes next? Yeah, so we bind this to controller. Bind to controller. This is gonna be a long tutorial, so bear with me, please. The template for this will be app slash components, because this is in the components folder. Components slash posts dot html. And the controller, which I didn't write yet, the controller will be post controller, and controller as will be posts. Okay, so now I'm just going to be returning this directive. Return directive. All right, now let's write the what you called. Let's keep on writing the controller. So function posts, post controller, and then well, we don't have anything to inject here, so I like according to John Papa's style guide, we'll be using this instead of scope. Having scope is, I would say, it's not that good. It's not a best practice. Using this instead of scope will make your app more use scope as well, but then it's better. It's like, well, I like this answer that John Papa gave. Like for example, scope is the classic technique, while controller as, that means this keyword that we're using, this binded with the controller, is much more recent. It's actually, it depends on your comfort and everything. So every time you use scope, you have to inject it. So that's actually a bit hassle. So if you can avoid it, just avoid it. So that's why you just use the default this binding, the controller binding, instead of scope. All right, so we have our scope declared, and I'm using VM equals this because it's a more, it's easier to not get mixed up, and it's a better, more like according to John's Papa style guide, it's a more easier name and everything. So all right, so right now we have nothing in our posts. We have nothing, but we want to test it out. We want to see if our posts work. So let's say vm.posts equal an array, and in that array maybe we'll have the post from our server side. Now if we want to have that, we would have to first make a service, an HTTP service. What it's going to do is it's going to fetch all my posts from my endpoint, from my server side endpoint, and then show it and render it into the front page, I mean into the home page. Now in order to have this directive available in our main controller, all we have to do is call this posts, that's it. And it will be it will render in your main controller. Now right now this won't be rendering anything because I have no data in my posts post component. Nothing is being rendered here. And maybe it will just show my cards. It will just show the card that I have. So I made a bit of an error in my controller.js file. So I basically forgot to put this double parenthesis because this function has to be invoked. So that's why I bet a lot of you would have gotten some error in your console, even though the HTML was rendering, but this controller file was not being recognized because this in self-invoking function syntax was incomplete. So basically before it was like this, and I forgot to put this double parenthesis because it has to call itself. All right, so yeah, so this part is done, and I will be injecting my posts over here inside the content div, and let's see if this is being rendered. Yep, so my card is being rendered. Right now, it's just showing dummy content. Now, if you want the actual content, actual loop to be going throughout this, if you want all the posts to be showing, then in the next tutorial, we'll be talking about how to write Angular services, which is basically HTTP get call and post call. All right, so let's see. I'll see you in the next tutorial and stay tuned.